Welcome to a series, He Trains My Hands for War, where we are going through the book of Joshua, verse by verse, because Joshua is by far the best example, if not really the only example, of a people group, a nation, millions of people going into war, doing it God's way, only doing warfare because he told them to, because it was prophesied long before them. They knew the prophecy, they knew that it was their time, and God told them it was their time. And even though their parents were cowards and couldn't do what now they're doing, they did it confidently, just incredibly confidently, and extremely obedient every step of the way. And really the only two acts of disobedience so far was one guy took some of the goods, the bounty, so to say, from Jericho, which God said all of it had to go to him in the treasury of the Lord. And one guy took it, so it caused them to have some problems in battle, but then they killed him, and God pointed him out, and they killed him and his family and burned everything he had, and then they were back to business. And then the next really act of defiance was kind of an accident. They were deceived into making a pact, an alliance, really just kind of this agreement, a sworn agreement that they would not attack these people because these people led them to believe they weren't from around there. So they made this pact with them just to find they were the next town over. And now today, this very day, Israel is dealing with leaving those people alive. They became the Philistines, and then so on and so on and so on. And then they stepped forward into really a battle against several kingdoms and just completely consumed those kingdoms and destroyed them and dragged the kings out and had it. Pardon me, I'm walking down this really steep hill. It's very muddy, so I don't want to injure myself here. So he literally has his captains put their feet on the necks of these kings to show them this is what God gives you. He delivers your enemies to where you could put your feet on their necks, and then he kills them. And really the orders are kill everybody, everything. Do not leave anything alive, really because of the purification process of this land. As we see in the future of Israel, all the nations are against them. All the nations rage constantly against them. They blended with the Philistines. They blended with nations around them, taking on their gods. They have this whole history of it. So in order for God to raise a people group to bring about the lineage of Jesus Christ, it has to be this way. It has to be a pure thing. He said the people of Abraham would be the lineage of Jesus Christ. Not, boy, this is really muddy out here. Not, a bunch of people group all blended together. And that's kind of the point of all this. So, they are to conquer this land, period. Gosh, I feel like I'm walking down a waterfall. So what we're about to see next is this point when all their enemies get consumed, and they actually quickly end this war and taking of this land. And I just want to kind of take these moments before we get into the wrapping up of this domination through warfare, because we're about to read chapter 11. And of course there's 24 chapters of Joshua. There's a lot more to this. So when it says that ended the war, don't just think that's the end. So we're just going to pick it up there. Joshua 11, starting verse 1. And it came to pass when Jabin, king of Hazor, heard these things, that he sent to Jobab, king of Madon, to the king of Shimron, to the king of Achshaph, and the kings who were from the north, in the mountains, in the plain, south of Chinneroth, in the lowlands, and in the heights of Doron, the west, to the Canaanites in the east, and in the west, and the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Jebusites, in the mountains, and the Hivites below, Hermon in the land of Mizpah. So they went out, they and all their armies with them, as many people as the sand that is on the seashore in multitude, with very many horses and chariots. And when all these kings had met together, they came and camped together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. But the Lord said to Joshua, do not be afraid because of them, for tomorrow about this time I will deliver all of them slain before Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire. So this king that really kind of called to all these different kingdoms and all these armies to gather them together as one whole army, as much as the sand on the seashore, to go against Israel. He ultimately is really, and we're going to find out later, that he's kind of over all these kingdoms, really. It's like, you know, a real powerful king over much smaller kingdoms. But many others came and joined him. So this is pretty much an empire, is what you're talking about here. This is not just, you know, Jericho was a kingdom that was all in a wall. And they, you know, they had lowlands and they had farms and stuff. But back in the day, you know, the whole kingdom would gather into the walls, you know, and they lived there for safety and security. But what this is this is one of those and many more of those, all combined as one giant empire coming up against Israel. And what God tells Joshua is be strong and of good courage. The same thing he's been continuing to repeat over and over and over again as this war continues from the beginning to even now. And Joshua has seen these things. You know, he saw much before they even crossed the Jordan, because he was one of the few that was alive, you know, of that last generation. There was only him and one other guy that were left alive of that generation. So he saw the previous generation miracles of God and punishment for not being obedient. And now he sees the benefit of obedience. So here, what you have is you have Joshua. Sorry, I keep running into spider webs. Here what you have is you have Joshua and this entire nation of people being incredibly obedient to God. And at the same time, you have people coming against them, trying to stop them from this. And I think that, you know, when you see this army come against them, it's because they're just like, this can't be so. Like, we have to rise against these people. You know, what God is doing through these people has to be shut down. It has to be shut down. And this is a piece that, you know, so now empires are coming against them. Sorry, I hear some giant animal around me. I think it's a buzzard flying or a turkey. Yeah, it's some buzzards, a couple big old buzzards. I just hear some big old animal off of the woods. So yeah, it's a couple buzzards. But anyhow, here what you have is you have Joshua, you know, destroying empires. And all of this is, you know, in the defiance of these empires trying to put an end to what God is doing. And I just kind of go back to, you know, you think, you know, it's all spiritual warfare too. You have to know that. And we're going to see later that even God ends up, you know, getting all these armies to come against Israel just so he can destroy them. So there's a lot of spiritual things taking place in these moments of warfare. You know, if you could kind of take your eyes off of reality and kind of like the real touchable physical world and lay it on the spiritual realm, I bet that time was very brutal spiritually. And what we're going to see in the end times is that there is going to be a significantly more aggressive effort to stop the people of God and stop the plan of God from coming to fruition. more than ever before, because it's almost the end for the enemy. You know, when Christ returns, he will literally reign on earth as he did in heaven. So what is he going to try to do? He's going to try to stop that from happening by destroying the people of God. Those people who are prophesying and witnessing and warring against the antichrist and the world army in defiance of them, because God is telling them to do these things. And it's going to play out the same way. Nations and empires will rise against these people. But God sustains us for 3.5 years. And God literally says to them, you know, I'm going to deliver them into your hands for 3.5 years. There is nothing that they can do to harm you. As a matter of fact, all these miracles that we've seen God put Joshua through, it's going to be very similar. Very similar. As empires rise against smaller people groups that are God's people of the remnant, parts of the Bible says literally the earth will swallow them. Like, it's just something we have to continue to believe, be strong and of good courage for a reason. You know, when you're in God's army, you're gonna win as long as you're being obedient to his orders. So there you go. Empires are rising against them. Any thoughts or insight? Definitely put that below. I do want to take a moment and say that most people watch this channel, they're not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. Greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. That link is below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests, and never hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.